This is Trekland HQ, and we are live. My guest today, Claire Willett, and the Star Trek Strikers fan support Snack Attack. Yes, today on a very exciting edition, number 321 of Trekland Tuesdays Live with me, Dr. Trek Larry Nemecek, coming at you here from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47 and the Trekland Treks, bringing you some clarity, sanity, and the big picture in all things Star Trek. I cannot wait for today's show. I've been here in the summer doldrums going, oh, come on. There's got to be something different besides the same old between shows and the dog days of summer. And also something to do as that strike grinds on and on and on. And we can talk about that in a minute. What I'm really excited today about, and I think everybody's out there. There we go. There's our chat folk. Hey, everybody. Good to see you all again. If you are a veteran here at TTL, you obviously know what to do. Hang on. If you are new to the chat, jump in now. Introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from. What's the weather? What 5 dialects of language you speak. All of that stuff. Because I'm going to get off on a soapbox here usually, but today I have the assistance of a guest in my soapbox. Now, we're going to talk for a bit, and then we'll take a break at some point, and I'll not a break for you, a break for YouTube later. And then we'll take a quick look at the Parrot Analytics to see what the ratings are doing. And then if we haven't still, I'll dive back into the chat again. But it'll be a little bit of, it's a guest format day today, so we'll see what happens with that, because I am so excited to have our guest with us. And everybody, again, jump in if you're new. Remember, also, that if you are on Facebook, you're only seeing the Facebook chat. But if you are on YouTube, yay, like and subscribe. Or if you're on Twitch, you're going to see everybody's comments and questions. So don't be confused by that. So jump over to YouTube and subscribe if you can. Otherwise, I'm thrilled to have everybody here. But hang on, because, I can't wait to. This is somebody who I saw their name at the beginning of the strike. And as we were all somewhere between trying to support our striking writers at the beginning and wonder what the politics and the play out of this was going to be, and then keep watching our shows as our new episodes unfurled. And then the writers got into it and the directors chickened out. But everybody's supporting each other, and like no other strike before, the IATSE crews, from art folks to stage folks, everybody, all the wardrobe folks, and also the Teamsters who get everybody where they got to get. As all that went along and the strike got bigger, we've had news today on top of this, something that's been in the works for a while. So I'm going to shut up and bring in our guest. I am so thrilled to have her with us, because I've been watching what's happening all summer, and I've missed the chance to say hello until now. So better late than never. Claire Willett.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for joining us on Trekland Tuesdays Live, and it's good to say hello finally.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Well, sure. So I'm going to say this in a nutshell, but I want you to say, basically, for all the people sitting at home, or all the people sitting in LA who can't go to the pickets, even much less everybody around the country and around the world, I'm going to say, who want to support their striking hero writers and actors and everybody who's an ally. You came up with an idea to support our Star Trek heroes on the line in a very practical way. And I want you to tell us what it's all about, what the Snack Attack is about, where it came from. And eventually, apparently, like everything else about Star Trek, it's the envy of the other franchises.
That's actually been kind of cool. It's like, ooh, we are everyone's favorite of all the fandoms. So I'm not a screenwriter, but I am a writer. I have a lot of friends on Twitter who are screenwriters, write for television shows. And so I had been following the lead up to the sort of increased possibility of a strike well in advance of when it happened, as many of us, I think, were. And I think from what I recall, in May when the strike first began, I think the first day of struck work was in like the middle of a work week. And I saw that a friend of mine, shout out to Patrick Patterson, also a Star Trek fan, who knows Discovery writer Carlos Cisco, and he lives in LA, had driven down there one day with like a box of donuts and coffee or something just to support the strikers. And I'm in Portland, Oregon. Obviously can't drive there, but I thought, I bet I could do that with like like Postmates or DoorDash or Uber Eats or something. Like I could probably on my phone find the address for the studio and just like send them, maybe I'll do that tomorrow. So I did that and people were very appreciative. And then I tweeted about it and Carlos tweeted a picture of the iced coffee and donuts. And then I had some other folks be like, hey, if you do that again, let me know, because like I would happily chip in $10, $20 so we could send more coffee and donuts. And then it sort of spiraled from there. So I thought, okay, if you want in on this thing, DM me. And I made a spreadsheet for it. And we had, so then it sort of, it blew up into a thing where then suddenly people who were on the strike side, like lot captains and coordinators, because everyone was sort of setting up infrastructure simultaneously. It was sort of like a bit of a work in progress in both directions. And so people were DMing me and saying, hey, I'm like a lot coordinator at, such and such place. And I've heard that you're doing supply stuff. Can you guys send things to us? So like the first couple of weeks we were doing daily deliveries. The goal was to try to target, what are the most likely places where we could find Star Trek writers. The impetus was really like, we want to support sort of like our family and our community in their labor action. Well, part of, course, what complicates that is LA geography, which is, people often just show up to picket at like, what's the lot that's closest to my house? And also people work on multiple shows. And so what we quickly realized was sort of, everyone is sort of all over town.
Right.
And the first week, we had heard from a number of sources that, lots of people were sending supplies and food and things like that, but there wasn't a system yet for kind of how things were getting distributed. And so we actually ended up, I think the first full 2 weeks, doing daily deliveries to Universal, which doesn't have any kind of Star Trek tie-in, but everyone kept telling us like, look, Netflix has so much stuff, they're throwing pizza away, nothing's going to Universal, can you guys please help? And so we were like, okay, let's get them like, donuts, coffee, water, get them sort of set up on their feet, and then switched to the system that we have been running since then.
Well, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, so that was amazing. And I do have this, you sent me a few of these from your collection. So this is like, I noticed this is May 5th. This is like the first few days.
Yeah, we got on it right away.
Yeah, and this is it's cutting off here, but this is.
Oh, yes, Carlos Cisco.
This is Carlos Cisco, who organized the first Trek Day, this year's edition of the strike, the Star Trek theme day that was at Paramount in May.
Yes.
But so when the strike first happened, maybe you zoom through this real fast. What was you said, I want to do this. What was who was the first human Star Trek related or otherwise, I guess in the WGA? Was it, did you just see people posting and you just hit them on Instagram or what?
Well, yeah. So I knew Carlos already just because I'm a big fan of Star Trek Discovery on which she was a writer. And so we had been on Twitter friends for a while. And so I think what I did that very first week was I was just like, okay, where is Carlos? And I sent because then, when you're ordering like from an app on your phone, you have to like give them somebody's name. And so I was like, okay, like take it to this street address that's going to the picketing crowds, ask for Carlos Cisco. That's probably my best shot at making sure that these like donuts get delivered. And he is a lot captain at Disney. And so he was kind of, when we delivered to Disney, our point person there. And also then that means that a lot of the disco writers and lots of other Star Trek people too, go to Disney because Carlos is there. Right. And so he was sort of he kind of helped us build the infrastructure. And he was also passing on things like, here are other places where you can find Star Trek folks. Here are some other, needs that we're hearing about, things like that. So now
he was your in and your hub to get this set up quickly and smartly.
Yes, and as well as Haley Harris, who is one of the lot captains at Paramount, who she's not affiliated with Star Trek, but she's super like involved on the ground, and because
smart enough to know that the Star Trek writers are scattered, and she was working Paramount, but she wasn't going to give up that channel.
Right. Well, and she also
a Trek person. Yeah, she was like, we can get the Star Trek people Paramount. We can help our side out.
Right. And they have very large teams. It takes many lot captains and coordinators to run a, one studio. And so Paramount was
doing 2 shifts before the heat wave.
Right. So, and Paramount was important to us because it's, Paramount is the employer of our Star Trek writers who are on strike, but also because, everyone kind of is everywhere. We also found kind of later in the process, towards closer to the summer, that Bill Wolkoff, who had been one of the writers and EPs of Strange New Worlds, is a lot captain at CBS TV City. And so when Strange New Worlds was gearing up to air, we were like, God, like, it's such a bummer that he doesn't get to celebrate like his show.
Right.
They don't get to have a premiere party. They don't get to do press. They don't get to go to cons, all that kind of stuff. So then we thought, well, let's add him to our rotation. And then on Thursday mornings, when a new episode drops, we'll do like something fancy, like, breakfast tacos or bagels and coffee or something nice, just to make it like a little celebratory for him.
Here's what you're missing by not talking about your show.
Yeah. And also just to remind them, like, your audience is still here. We're still with you and we support you. And that we support the human beings who make this work and their rights as workers. And that's more important to us than like, I'm grumpy that I'm not getting my stories on time. Like that these stories are important to us because of decades of really extraordinary writing that has brought these characters to life that we all love, and that those people, deserve to be respected and to know that they have this community with them. So it's like, it's a material need because it's hot and we're sending cold bottled water. And it's also an emotional need because every time somebody cracks open one of those bottles of cold water, they're feeling that support. And one thing that's kind of cool about the snack squad is like, not everybody can give like $100. Some people feel kind of awkward about like, I can only give like $5 this week. Like, is that enough? Is that okay? Someone else is giving more and I feel like I'm doing enough. And it's just like the water that $5 bought, like that, the person who drank that bottle of water that you paid for, like they felt that, there's a emotional connection between you and that person. I think that's really special.
$5 goes a long way.
Yeah, it really does.
When it's something as basic as water, and this strike is all about the basics, if anything else.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's all kinds of little ramifications about this and little ripple effects. So one of them is, it's interesting. I mean, when the strike happens, and I was at the the first Tuesday of the strike happened to be my 6th anniversary show. And I don't do a big deal, but I want to do something big in a simple way. And I was doing the same thing. I was watching everybody on, and a week or two before, I was feeling guilty because I hadn't been talking about, because the vast unwashed mundane audience out there did not know about the strike until like the weekend before, and it kind of got on the radar, right? Like news does. And I was saying, and the week before, I was saying, oh guys, I'm feeling guilty because I hadn't been building you up for the strike here. So in any of my channels or shows or anything. So I mentioned it. And then that day just happened to be my 6th anniversary show. And I reached out to some of them I could see, Carlos and Bill. And Bill actually came on like the second day, or maybe it was the first day. Anyway, he came on and just walked live with us and talked for 15, 20 minutes and just kind of talked about the basics. And so I met him then finally at which is the silver lining of this, has been like getting to talk to some of the writers when they're out of their basements and out from under the heavy hand of the studio, the spoiler alert. But that's been a good thing. So yeah, so Carlos has been great. Carlos organized the Trek Day, at Paramount. It wasn't his home lot, but he was really emotional by the time it was done. And that's kind of where I had seen your project fly by.
Yeah, we did a bunch of stuff.
And then I especially saw, did you like gear up big time for that Star Trek Day in May?
Yeah, we did several big things for that. Our normal weekly deliveries, we've got people in teams of 5 to 7, doing a couple flats of water or 40 or 50 donuts or breakfast sandwiches, things like that. So it's on a smaller group. But for the big things, we knew in advance. Like I had been told sort of behind the scenes by the lot coordinators, like FYI, this is coming. So I could sort of gather a bigger group. And then we collected a lot of extra funds from people who were like, look, I'm not on a weekly team, but like I want to chip in for this. And so we sent an ice cream truck, and we sent I think 500 paletas, really good like Mexican popsicles, and then something else, maybe a coffee cart. It was like 3 things, kind of coming in like, shaved ice. That was the other one, with the ice cream truck and shaved ice and the popsicles, and like so the whole,
because they were a
all
big
day long.
hit, and everybody was.
Yes.
I remember Ira going, "They've got the shaved ice." People were
Yeah.
like, "Did you get your ice? Did you get your popsicle?" Yeah.
Yeah, that was really fun too, because then then everyone's like looking on Twitter as like all of our, like Jerry Ryan's over here and this person's over here, and the pictures are posting, and everyone's like, "Ooh, there's someone I recognize, and they're eating one of our popsicles." Like it makes people feel like, "Ooh, like we really did something, and we're like connecting with these awesome people." So that was our last kind of big hurrah. And then we've done a couple other larger scale things since then. We wanted to do something special for the finale of Strange New Worlds, and so for that one, and I can't take any credit for this idea. This came up in the Snack Squad group chat, and a group kind of tackled it and ran with it, which was really exciting. But there's a designer, a fan artist, who had done some really awesome Star Trek like solidarity logos that you might have seen like floating around on Twitter and social media and stuff. There's one in my pinned tweet, and they've come up in a lot of the sort of Trek solidarity strike tweets. And they designed one that could go on. We did these cooling scarves that, you like some high tech performance fabric, and you like soak it in water and wrap it around your neck, and it like keeps you cool all day, because people were, it was really, really like dangerously hot out there. And we all heard the stories about the studios doing all kinds of scummy like strike breaking stuff, cutting down trees and tearing up sidewalks.
The Universal Tree line.
And so it's just, so the heat, just keeping people safe, it was a huge concern. So we ended up getting a bunch of extra donations. Print run of like, I think 250 or almost maybe 300, of those scarves, and they were blue and red with that Strength and Solidarity logo. And we were able to send a box of them to all 3 of our sites that we cover. And of course, not like limited to, only people who've worked on a Star Trek show can have these. They were for everybody. But it's been really cool to see like Trek folks and Trek writers tweeting pictures of themselves from the picket lines, and everyone's like, they're wearing one of our scarves. It makes people feel really good. And we've also heard from a lot of people that they really help, like that they actually are genuinely helping people to stay cooler in those really awful hot days. So that felt really good too, because then it's something you can bring back with you every day, as opposed to like, eating a burger and then like that's like a one-time thing. This was had sort of like a longer effect.
The water bottle and the ice cream was nice for that 10 minutes, and it saved them. But that's nothing compared to these scarves that are
so this was really fun too.
What was let's see, what's the next thing here? Oh, and this is just some more.
We and one of the Bill has been great about recommending some places, like for us to try to get away a little bit from the reliance on like delivery apps, delivery drivers, people that we don't know, and trying to sort of cultivate like who are local LA restaurants and places that are supportive of this strike, that have their own delivery staff. And so shout out to Home State Tacos, who do big catering boxes of breakfast tacos that we sent for my birthday, which was August 23rd. I collected a whole bunch of money from other donors for my 42nd birthday, and we got 42 donors. Most of them gave 42 bucks, and we sent like 300 Home State breakfast tacos to all of our sites, just like blanketing everybody in breakfast tacos. And they're really great, and they're huge strike supporters. They also give a discount to orders that are going to the picket line. So if you're if anyone out there is ever in need of sending a box of 24 tacos to a picketer, call Home State, because they're awesome. And tell them that Claire sent you. But so we've been trying to be adaptable to like what the picket captains are saying that they need. We pivoted to really focusing on hydration once the weather got bad. Thinking about, when we have special events coming up and how to like loop people in, things like that. But we are, and we are taking new members. Like we are open to people signing up, but we have at least sort of a skeleton crew to carry us through. We're scheduled out through December 31st. So kind of however long this drags out. I keep telling people like, we're in this with you, however long you're in this, for the
duration, as we said in World War II and the pandemic, both, or at least I did on the pandemic. Well, let me see if anybody's got questions here in the chat. Normally I have this like 2-part thing where I talk and then I do a break and then I look at chat. But when there's a guest, people, I don't want to leave you, and I want to see. So lots of people sending love and hellos, and I'm back scrolling a little bit here, everybody. If you're new to Trekland Tuesdays Live, I'm going to mess up my scroll counters that always tag this because we're going to go back and forth a little bit. Lots of people saying hi, and oh yeah, okay, Melanie, I'll put you up here. Boom. Yeah, from Modesto, future home of Bradford Bornblur. Let's see. Okay, yeah, solidarities, and this is great idea. And okay, come on, guys. Yes, a bottle of water is life. So Narda's coming into us from the outback, Claire, in Australia.
Awesome.
We have folks from all over. A bottle of water is life. Yes, Narda. What's with my chat here? Guys, I can't. My chat is not advancing. What's going on? Surely we've had folks since. Maybe not. Hey, everybody, if you're in the chat and you've got a question for Claire or something, let us know. I know I'm breaking precedent here. You're normally saving it for later, but go ahead and jump in now, and I'll come back to the chat. We started off, and I just want to make sure we're still all connected. Well, so and I do want to talk about, we can run the URL for if people want to jump in and get involved. And I guess there's a lot of ways to get involved, either just sending a donation, or even if they're in LA, or if they've got some other logistical, because you're in Portland. So how did speaking of infrastructure, how did that go? I mean, how are you organized now? How many are on the group, the committee, the team, the whatever?
So we've altogether we've had about probably about 130 folks who have donated at least once, and we've got a little over 50 who are in the regular rotation. So right now, kind of from here through the end of the calendar year, we've got people sort of in teams where you're sort of on a slot once a month. So I've been trying to offload a bit so that all of the kind of infrastructure is not all on me. So I've got a team of 4 weekly coordinators, and then they've got a Monday team and a Friday team. So we do Disney and Paramount on Mondays and CBS on Fridays, and then the same, they've got sort of the same group of folks. So everyone knows each other, and everyone's got each other's Venmo and PayPal information, things like that.
So you're not doing daily deliveries to all the.
No, we did that at the very beginning, and that was both a full-time job for me to organize, and also not financially sustainable for donors. So in order to be able to kind of approach it as like a marathon and not a sprint, trying to stretch it out where we've got enough people that we hit every location once a week, and each donor only has to give about once a month unless a special thing comes up. That being said, if there are new folks out there who want to join, and we also have people from like all over the world, I would love to be able to increase the number of deliveries we can do and hit everybody on like Monday and Wednesday to sort of refresh their supplies throughout the week, or to be able to do bigger orders of food and things like that. But there's a lot of kind of easy one-click, PayPal and Venmo, other mutual aid funds out there that we've also been connected with and are supporting. There's a group of pre-WGA writers that are doing an emergency hydration fund where you just send money straight to them wherever you want, and it goes into a big bucket. And then they sort of take the emergency calls. If anybody anywhere in town runs out of ice or water, they'll, go to the store and grab some and rush right over there. And it's sort of a like emergency stopgap fund. And so we've funneled a lot of people their way. That's at pre-WGA strike on Twitter. And then there's the Green Envelope Grocery Fund, which is helping out of work writers and folks on strike to be able to buy their own groceries. So it's like money that's going directly to support them. There's somebody whose name I cannot remember who's been doing Costco pizza runs from the very beginning. So there's a lot of other folks doing this. One really cool thing also actually is that when we first started, because we were sort of we were very loud very early. And so a lot of people were sort of like, oh, our fandom or our group is interested in sort of setting something up. Oh, let's ask the Star Trek people because they sort of seem to have something going on. And so I've worked with a few other fan communities, most notably Our Flag Means Death fandom, which is an HBO show. So their lot is Warner Brothers. And they have been, they got started, I think, a couple weeks after we did. And they have been covering Warner Brothers for daily grocery drops since the strike started. I was in touch with the coordinator there. I was like, here's my spreadsheet. Here's everything I know. Here's all the phone numbers I've got. Here's my script for drivers, like all the information that I have. You take it and run with it. And then they really did. So that's been really cool too, is just sort of feeling like other fandoms are going, hey, like, look what the Star Trek folks are doing. We can replicate that at our own places, which is great because, you know, we can't cover every lot. We don't have the bandwidth to do that. And we do really want to keep it focused on places where our Star Trek folks are most likely to appear. But it's really exciting just to be part of a movement of fans finding ways to get involved from all over the world to support their writers.
Well, I was going to say also, once again, it was good that this didn't take off with a, well, why do the Star Trek people get something and we don't? Which would never be your intent. I know.
Yeah.
It's also good that here I'm sitting here going, well, once again, Star Trek invents it before there's a template for it.
Yeah.
And, you know, once again, it's Star Trek that's the granddaddy franchise here, showing its, you know,
yeah,
like and
benefiting everybody. Like I got
and then spreading the pattern, the template out.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the, I've had a lot of conversations with Haley at Paramount and her team about how, you know, it really means a lot to her, where she's very like, look, like I'm not a Star Trek person. Like I know these people, you know, just like, you know, they're her coworkers and they're picketing at her lot. And so they know each other sort of professionally and socially, but she's not a Star Trek writer. And so she's like, it just really means a lot to everybody to know that like the community that Star Trek fans have built is generous enough that it like is serving everybody who needs support at Paramount, you know, and like to them, it feels like there's something really special about Star Trek fandom, that we're not just like, I only want my support to go to people who create work that I watch and therefore it benefits me personally. We're just like, this is like, you know, like, this is what Star Trek teaches us about like labor and workers' rights and how to build a society and what community looks like. And we're just taking those values and we're putting them out in practice. And everybody, you know, so everyone who is at a Paramount lot on a day that the snack squad gets a water delivery, you know, like that water's for everybody, you know?
Oh, I don't know. The good of the many outweighing the good of the few.
What would Miles O'Brien do, you know?
Well, I was doing a Spock Vulcan quote there, but yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, as we all know, Miles was quoting about his relative who was not just a hero. He was a union man.
He was a union man.
Yeah. The number one Star Trek quote on all the placards.
I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking here. So Dave, and I'm going to apologize because I thought I had some URLs ready here, but I'll let you say them anyway. So Dave is saying, aside from like the things in house you have and what the fandoms are doing, I know the writers originally had the Entertainment Community Fund to help with folks.
Yes.
Right. In and out of the guild, a lot of the affected industries that are hurting too. And now that the actors are into it, the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is another one.
I do not know, and I don't have links handy for the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. I do know that I've seen folks from every union talking about the Entertainment Community Fund. That's because that covers a broader swath. I also just saw, and I haven't looked into this deeply yet, but I saw a link on Blue Sky that a new fund that I hadn't heard of before just popped up on my radar like yesterday, that's specific to helping out, like financial support for out of work production assistants who are often like lowest paid on the ladder, often not covered by any union, but they can't work either. And they were not making enough money before the strike to have enough in the bank to, you know, keep paying their rent. And so I do not, I can dig it up and find it, and I'll put it on my Twitter. I haven't looked into it yet. I'm assuming it's legit, but that was a new one that I had heard of. And that was also more of a mutual aid. I think they were giving like financial, like direct financial support to those folks. But yeah, the Entertainment Community Fund is great. And then for supplies, going straight to the line, I would say the pre-WGA Strike Fund. And I saw, thank you, Dave, for popping that tag in the chat. And then the Green Envelope Grocery Fund. And I can't remember her name, but I'm sure if you search on Twitter, the woman who's been doing the Costco pizzas, it's like $10 and change, I think, to send a huge Costco pizza. And she goes and fills up her trunk with like 20 of them at a time and drives them around everywhere. And it covers, I think, the whole spectrum, as does the pre-WGA Hydration Fund. So those are two that are pretty broad based that I know about, that have been running for a long time, and they're LA based folks. So you just hand them the money and they just buy whatever they need with it. And so for a lot of folks who are remote, that's the easiest way to do it. I can't drive to Paramount with donuts in the trunk of my car, but if somebody else is more in touch with like what's needed where and can get things there, I think mobile, like the ability to send money to each other on your phone, has actually made strike support a million times easier than it was last time we did this.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing there's lots of things playing out, and I want to get back to the logistics, but let me just go here for a second. So I moved to LA in '94 when the Berman era boom was on, and my Next Generation book came out, and there was lots more stuff to do, and things were exciting and booming. And I wasn't an LA person in the industry, but I would read, and of course in the Star Trek world where the strikes have intersected, we love to go back. People can go back to the Aaron Harvey, my friend with the animated series expert, can go back to the animated series and talk about how Dorothy Fontana got great writers on the Saturday morning animated show because they were on strike that year and they could write animation. So she got all these great writers to write animated scripts. But where it really hits everybody's memory well is Next Gen, from the first and the second seasons, when the second season was short because of the strike, and the studio was pulling scripts from phase 2 out and used the child and all these kind of things that was a real world effect. And then they settled and then they came back. And then the one that's in my memory is the 07-08 strike. And there was no active Star Trek by then. We were in the fallow years, except the JJ's got Bob and Alex were on the lot writing the script, and came out and picketed. But other than that, that was the first year of the social media era.
Yeah. And
there were 3 or 4 theme strikes, and the Star Trek one was the 3rd or 4th one out of the gate. There was like a horror, wasn't franchise. There was like a horror writers and, mystery and horror writers theme picket. And, but Star Trek was like the first franchise to have a theme picket.
That's cool.
And when the old StarTrek.com, which was news-based, was in LA and still going, it's actually like the last big event we covered, and have a ton of stuff from that day. And it was a huge thing. It was like monumental. And we had of course, back then there were only 2 generations. It was,
right.
You had Harlan Ellison and David Gerald, and then you had all the Berman era people picketing, and a lot of actors coming out just like they have done,
which is really cool.
But what's so, and that was like, this thing that happened, and it's like a rosy memory. So when this got going, and I saw so many and Carlos and Bill Wilkoff and some of them, I was going, hey, you should do a Star Trek Day face, especially now when it's a thing. That was like a baby steps, new, cool, neat thing, new. But now it's kind of like, there are 4,200 themes and franchises and shows that can do something like that to keep their spirits up and give the fans something to buy in on. So that was, but we've got social media now. So not only does it get the, not only, number one, no matter what we're doing, publicizing and supporting, it just gets the message out faster. So now we're seeing the AMPTP, not that there have to be bad guys unless you want to make yourself a bad guy, but they're kind of being exposed because they're not keeping up and they're clunky. And it's almost like, it's almost like 2 different centuries armies fighting each other here, because it's not only that they're nimble, the actors and the writers, but their message is out there and it's easy to understand and it's easy for people. So it's not just, oh, I'm a Star Trek fan and I want to support my heroes. It's like, no, we get it. And then, and then it ripples out to a lot of the industries that and some of the other strikes we've even had, the UPS strike and some of the other stuff. So what I'm saying here is the same, tech in a box, tech in your hand that's letting you watch and consume is also, and communicate and be a fan even on steroids more than you could 20 years ago, is letting what you're doing now happen. Even it's getting their message out, and then the support is happening in ways that can never happen. I don't know if you look at the history of their strikes going back to the 30s and 40s, but it's like I don't know if that dimension can ever happen again now because this is such a small d democratic tool.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely 100% what this.
And there's my Trekland Tuesdays rant for the day, kids. There's my soapbox.
I absolutely think that what I'm doing, like what the Snack Squad is doing, would not be possible without Twitter. For me, like I have a little over or a little under 50,000 Twitter followers, which most of the time as a woman on the internet is a curse. But where it's really useful is that when you're on the right side of the algorithm, you put things out there and then they sort of blow up and spread. And I also have a lot of friends and followers who are Star Trek people. Like that's, I tweet a lot about Star Trek. I live tweet shows. And so it's been just for me to kind of be like, I have a platform and what do I want to do with that platform to be able to get things out there. But so it's just in terms of organizing, like we communicate about Snack Squad logistics in group DMs. Like I'll put, here's this Monday's 5 people and we put them in a group chat together. Like all of it's done. We're moving with them a little bit now because we've had some folks join who don't have Twitter, but the majority of the communication, that's where it's all happening because that's where everybody is sort of cross-pollinating. But I do also think in terms of like, the shortening the distance between audience and creator on social media, we all know that like sometimes that's disastrous. Like sometimes it leads to harassment or creators getting sucked into fandom drama or weird parasocial relationships. Like sometimes it can be not great, but
it's like everything. It's like we've seen like in the beginning, Facebook and Twitter were great for finding your grandma or your high school reunion class or something. But then you get the downside,
and then they sort of get it. Yeah, but one of the things that can be really beautiful for is the fact that more and more people these days get the majority of your news or your awareness of what's going on in the world from social media means that in a lot of ways the studios are sort of bringing a knife to a gunfight because they're still working on an outdated model of we leak messaging to like the 3 trade publications owned by the one company we can control. And it's just like, yeah, but no random normcore, just like Joe Schmo Claire in Portland is getting my news on the strike from Deadline. I don't read Deadline. Right. I'm getting it from, I follow Jerry Ryan on Instagram and I get it from like somebody that I know from, who's a Star Trek fan is retweeting pictures of like actors with picket signs that say things like the picket signs virality potential, like the clever, pithy things that people say or the picket line slogans or the drawings and art and things they put on them. Like that is a profoundly memorable social media tool. Everybody is doing like listicles of like top 10 funniest picket signs like that. Just the signs themselves are a huge asset. And then also, you probably remember this, like earlier in the strike proceedings, the WGA published, and then later SAG did the same thing, like screen caps of a sort of the table of like, here's everything that we asked for, and here's what their response was, and why it's bad. And they were super clear, and little screen cap snippets of those asks would like blow up on Twitter and go viral. And that was really incredible too, because every time that happened, some random person who like doesn't work in the industry, maybe doesn't have like a super insider knowledge of the world of screenwriting, is drilling down into the specifics. Like I'm learning things. Like my brother's a film editor. I have friends that are TV writers. Like I have a sort of slightly higher than like layman's understanding of the industry. And I'm going, wait a minute, like we make extras and background actors pay for their own dry cleaning every day for their costumes. Like I didn't know that. I didn't know that the studios could promise you money and then just be like, haha, we have your paycheck. We're not going to give it to you for a year. And we know that we do it and we're not going to apologize and we're not going to stop. What are you going to, I was like, things that wouldn't fly in any other line of work. And so I think those things that are really applicable, like anybody can understand that. Your employer should not be able to just arbitrarily withhold your paycheck. Everyone understands that, you know, and I think the thing that has helped kind of demystify this idea of like Hollywood elitism, right, or that like we're talking about people who are like super rich millionaires. Exactly. And so what do I care if they can't buy a second Malibu home? And it's like, no, like SAG and the WGA and I'm so glad that you mentioned it's like it's IATSE, it's the Teamsters. Like LA is a union town. Everybody in the Hollywood, you know, machinery, like who is working to make a living in the film industry, they're all in unions, or they should be in unions if they're not. Like the VFX
I was going to say, have you seen what's happening there with the visual effects? Yes.
Oh my God. Well, and I have heard like word on the street, when the street being Twitter, I have heard from a lot of people that Disney and Marvel in particular, that like VFX workers are like, the treatment is horrible. Like that they are like overworked and underpaid to a degree that would shock regular people who participate in, like, who consume the media that is built on their backs.
Even more than at any point in history now.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it's not just space battles, it's every little thing gets a CG tweak, you know, like.
Exactly. And I'm really hopeful about some of the conversations happening around animation too. You know, I mean, I think everybody deserves union protection, but I think something that's been really beautiful about social media, you know, something to be a rare thing to be positive about Twitter, is that I really feel like when this first happened, in terms of just in terms of like Star Trek fandom discourse, I think there was a moment right at the beginning where it could have gone one of two ways. It could have gone in the direction of, you know, we're mad that our shows are being delayed. Right. We're mad that there might not be a season 3 of Strange New Worlds. All this feels super whiny and entitled. We're grumpy that we're not getting our content, and we're going to direct and we're buying the framing from Variety and Deadline and whatever, that this is just entitled writers being whiny.
Even like you said, if they're not reading the trades, that's a take you can have sitting at home.
Yeah, it's like the writers walked off the set, makes it feel like the writers are the ones that had the agency and caused the problem. And so it could have gone that direction. And when you saw, particularly with the news that Strange New World season 3 was like on ice, I think just from what I saw on my own feed, I saw multiple different kind of fan news sites handle the framing of that headline very differently. So some folks, like shout out to Collider, were immediately like, basically like, the studios screwing over the writers is why you don't get your new Strange New Worlds. And then some people were a little bit more like, writers going on strike. So it was sort of
if
like,
it's just word, you leave that context open. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think at the beginning, I think it could have gone either direction. And something I've been really pleased to see over the course of the strike is that it really feels like broadly, by and large, the whole Star Trek fandom has really come down on the right side of history on this, that like there's lots of support happening. There's lots of, you know, fans like retweeting, and, you know, every time a writer or an actor that you like is at one of the pickets and they're posting positive comments, like the energy seems behind it. And I don't know that that's necessarily true for every single other show out there that might have been suspended or paused or delayed that has a really enthusiastic fandom. Like there probably are fans out there who are like, well, screw you actors, because I wanted more of my, you know, whatever. But it makes me feel really proud that the Star Trek fandom, I feel like everyone is taking the message of Star Trek.
Well, once again, you know, the inclination, you know, when your show goes away for a strike, whether they're involved or not, if it was only the writers on strike, you would have no show. Or whatever, and the face of any show to the vast majority are the cast of that show. So even before the actors were on strike, in Star Trek's case, but beyond Star Trek, because Star Trek once again is a special case where I've been in a minority of people. My whole fandom was all about the canon and the background and how it was made, and of course I love the actors, and of course I love the stories and all that. But what really got me in was the world, you know, and all that. And and to be in the Midwest or to be, you know, somewhere where you're not in an industry town. I mean, like part of it was you read the world of Star Trek. It was like, oh my God, this is how a show is made.
Mhm.
And then I move here and I work with these people, and that's what has been the jam of my jelly of my business, has been not just recording that and preserving it, but then getting it out to the world. And hey, everybody, you love your actors, but after, you know, go around the block 2 or 3 times with that episode. And now if you want to know more about it, here's the writers, here's the prop people, here's the wardrobe, here's the set building, here's the art staff, here's the visual, you know. And so I think Star Trek, even as much as anybody over the long haul, but still, we've been in that thing about making the public savvier, so that like if you went to a con and you got questions in the 70s, the quality of the question now, even talking to actors, is the quality of our fandom's basic savviness with the way the sausage is made is, and I'm horribly mixing metaphors, is much deeper. So that, yeah, social media, this quick, nimble turnaround. Of course, people are getting their news from their actors and writers and the savvy media who's doing it, not from the trades. But I'm saying they're already predisposed to be there anyway. And it's not like, say, like in the I was reading somebody talking about being on strike in the 80s strike, and people would still drive by and, like, you know, random people, there's picketing around LA, and people drive by and they're honking at them, but they're like swerving and honking, or they're spitting at them as they drove. I can't imagine that today, because I think most people, and we're also at a place where people get it. And when you talk about they're trying to gigify the writers and actors and the AI, you know, the AI is even like scary, but it's not even like the core thing. Like we realize, as like I've been watching since I started here, we've been trying to look at the popularity and using the parrot analytics and all that, because the Nielsen's, the old school Nielsen ratings, but it's gone from being just here's how we gauge our passion, you know, our hobby thing that we do, watch our favorite shows, to like, it's not just about you knowing what's the #1 show versus number 100. It's like people getting paid. Like that lack of transparency, and that, ooh, it's black magic how we determine, like, we're keeping our numbers to us and not sharing. Right. Those idiots in the early days, they totally let the toothpaste out of the tube. They're letting the whole world know how popular one show was versus another one, you know, so on the old model. So now with streaming, we can keep all this secret, and haha, it's the new world. And it's like, and we sat here for 5-6 years going, well, this is confusing. I wonder what's really the most, but it's like, no, this is people's lives. Yeah. People getting cheated. So if nothing, this is like the pandemic of like ripping this away even more. Yeah. To say, this isn't going to fly. And then to see they're in confusion, and that the streaming model may not even financially make sense. And what the hell does that mean? You know?
I mean, I think that's why they're being so secretive. I mean, it's like they're
why they're starting to look more and more confused also.
Right. Yeah. But it's like you are
unified. Yeah.
Right. But like you are clearly, like, you were either lying in one or the other direction, right? Either the show is less popular and less financially successful than we think it is, and that's why you don't have enough money to pay everybody fairly, or but then you can't admit that, because then your stock prices would tank. Or it's way more successful than you're letting us believe, and so you deserve a super high stock price. Then what is your excuse for not rewarding the artist who gave you that success? So it's like you're either lying to the artist about not having enough money for them, or you're lying to your shareholders about how financially successful this is. Like, both things can't be true. And I suspect if we really could dig into those numbers and like get a forensic accountant in there and do some sleuthing, I think what we would find is the exact same thing that we all learned when social media abandoned text in favor of like pivoting to video. And then 5 years later, everybody was like, yeah, okay, that was a huge disaster, you know, and the promise of streaming was supposed to be all of the shows and movies that you could ever want to watch available at your fingertips. Like, that's why we all stopped getting our Netflix DVDs in the mail. I was told I could watch every movie I wanted to watch on my computer. And now they're basically reinventing cable by bundling streaming packages. And it's like, this feels a lot like the same system that we had before, except worse for the artists and more expensive for me. So like, what are we doing? So I do feel like, I think what's happening right now is a real watershed moment in how we understand like our consumer relationship with the studios and what we are sort of unwilling to just accept from them anymore as gospel truth, and a real kind of collective, we are so done with the same 6 billionaires exploiting everybody who works for them so they can buy another yacht. Like, I think the pandemic really shortened people's patience with getting screwed over, and has
I
made.
was going to say the pandemic was like the first setup, and now these labor actions have brought it home again. Like the thing you thought for 30, 40 years is not, and part of that thing about, oh, it's the Hollywood elites, that got tramped down very fast.
Yeah.
But what I think part of the success of that happening was that, you can go two ways with that. You can either say, oh, those Hollywood, well, I wish I had made this much an hour and I'm blah, blah, blah. Partly we got through the pandemic and having all that exposed,
Exactly.
But the essential workers who were the lowest paid people are the people that made the country work.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And now it's like, twist this around. People used to, it would be like the labor organizer who would try to do this all on his own. But now it's starting to get across that rather than you sit at home and say, well, I wish I got that. It's like, no, the point is, why aren't you getting?
Yeah.
It's like, why isn't it working that way? Why have you allowed this is what the income gap is. Why we're back in the 20s, the pre-depression crash, the gap between the rich and poorest. That's the biggest gap ever, because this is exactly why fewer people are making a safety net income.
Yeah. And I think that,
and rather than yelling at the elites they're not elites, they're all paycheck to paycheck. Rather, you need to look at your own home, like, what do you work in, and say, why are we not that? Instead of saying, why do they get that? It's like, wait, why do we not all get this?
Right. And I think anytime an industry sees another industry going on strike, I mean, this is why I think, like, the WGA communicating about really basic things like being paid on time that everybody can understand. I think you see somebody else striking for reasons that you find relatable, and I think it inspires other people to be like, wait a minute, yeah, we also should ask for that. And so I think all of these strikes, like everyone's sort of joking about, it's like hot strike summer, but I think it's really powerful. We've got like the Starbucks conversations that are sort of just happening, the UPS strike that was like a landmark transformative game changer. I like that they got, like a 40% increase in wages. And so the AMPTP is over here saying, like, oh, we could only afford to give, writers a cost of living, whatever, wage increase of like 5%. And it's like, well, you're going to have to do better than that because they just got 40, like, where everyone is sort of seeing what everybody else is doing. And I think that collective action is really powerful because it makes it feel like once one person gets a win, it's like the dominoes are starting to topple and the billionaires are very scared, which is a great place for the workers to be. And like, I think, I really do feel like,
like I said, I think it's also exposed, they're not, it's in the AMPTP isn't a monolith either. This is driven by the big Wall Street tech guys who are new to Hollywood, who aren't owned, who these decisions aren't being made by people in the industry who have a share. It's the outsiders coming in who just care about that.
Right. Yeah, there are executives who love movies and love television and are trying really hard to get like their bosses and higher ups, like to get the CEOs to stop. I mean, I've seen, so many like anonymous quotes from executives going like, look, we know that they're going to win. What they're asking for is reasonable. We all want to get back to work. It's just the CEOs. It's just the people at the top that, like, even within the sort of like executive, like the suits all the way down, there are a lot of people who are like, it is crazy that we are drawing this out for so long when we could just settle and give them what we want. We're going to have to anyway. Let's just do it. And then we don't have to keep kicking the can down the road and delaying all the big movie releases from Christmas to next March, like in order to have actors to be able to promote them and be making the revenue. So it's just, it's a
boom.
It's inevitable. It feels inevitable.
This is what I wanted. And we can, I want to get back to what you're doing, but this is the other thing that came out that's just very telling. That, if you actually, and this is just the writers, it's not the actors.
Right.
But it's like pieces of 1%.
I think altogether, both unions, it's like 2%. Like fully funding everything that they asked for, both SAG and the WGA, down to the penny, it is 2% of their profits.
Right.
And without that, then you have nothing to sell. And I think also one of the other kinds of stories that I think people are hearing more and more and getting frustrated about, a new one just landed yesterday, is, finished, completed works of art people were really excited to see being thrown in the trash for a tax write-off. I think Batgirl was the one that kind of popped first, but then the Spiderwick Chronicles one, which was a children's show on Disney, that news just came out yesterday, and that was like kid actors for a kid audience, books that are really popular, and Prodigy, like
and the author.
Yeah.
I think it was the author or someone tweet X'd that even as they don't release it, they can't get their rights back to go find somebody.
They can't exactly. Yeah, I mean that's like,
so it's in limbo. They'll
as an author, that's
visual depiction of their books because of this.
Yeah, that's, as an author, that's something that I think about a lot, because, of course, like, like I have written a book that, we were trying for a long time when it first came out to sort of shop it around for like film and TV deals. And, it's super exciting to think about, I have writers whose books have been developed for TV, and it's so exciting. And then more people get to see it. And it's kind of the dream for a lot of writers to like see your book become a TV show or a movie. Yeah. And now it's kind of like, I don't really want that anymore, because one person says yes, and then they develop it, and then they're like, haha, just kidding. You get Batgirl, and we're going to throw it in the trash. Then you don't have another shot at that.
That's a verb now. You got Batgirl.
You got Batgirl. Yeah. Make that catch on. But yeah, so I think there are a lot of reckonings like that where it's just, we have always known that for the people at the tippity top, that this is about money more than it is about art. But I think the sort of shocking ways in which that's become clearer, I think have been really startling to even informed people like you and I, who know, like, who understand more about how this industry works. Like, I'm still learning things that I find really appalling. Like the Batgirl thing really stuck with me. The movie was done. It was ready to go. People were excited. It had Batman Michael Keaton in it. I would have seen it 4 times just for that. And they were like, nope, no one can have this. It's done. It cost us $0 more to just put it in theaters. That's passive revenue we could just rake in. And we're not going to, because like throwing it in the shredder gets us a tax write-off that offsets the expenses of making it. And it's just like, then why are you here? Like, why are you buying film and television companies?
You talk about Spiderwick. It makes me wonder about poor Prodigy. Had they not been co-partnered with Nickelodeon,
I know,
or had it been,
it's such a good show, and I'm
glad that they have Aaron. I know I've gotten to know Aaron fairly well, and the Hagen's crew, but it's like, I'm glad they've always had a confidence about that because they had 20. But they say, well, we've got 20 episodes. What are they going to do? Throw those away? Well, it's apparently the new
and
fad.
They might. I know, and that, which is so depressing, because I loved Prodigy. I thought it was such a great show, and what I found really
for kids, as I keep saying. Yeah.
What'd you say?
I said it's not just for kids.
No, it's exactly. I think it, and I feel the same way about Lower Decks too. Like, one thing that I really love about the new golden age of Star Trek that we're living in is any one of these new Trek shows could be a new person's entry point into the world of Trek in a different way. And I love that there is a version of that is about kids and geared towards kids, that also is full of jokes and lore that are wonderful and hilarious to me, a person who grew up on Star Trek, who's 42 years old and does not have children, but like, I'm getting as much joy out of it in a different way. So Julie and Shauna Benson, who wrote for Prodigy, who I've known for a long, long time and are wonderful. And I was so excited when they got that gig, because they were, they're my age-ish, and they grew up in like the Janeway generation, the girls who came up in Star Trek in the era of Captain Janeway and how important she is to women and girls. And so to have like women writers who grew up with her as a role model get to write for Janeway, it's like, it's so like, I love that the people who grew up with a passion for Star Trek in the previous iterations are the ones creating it now. And that's who I want to continue getting the opportunity to make new Star Trek for us, which in the end is really what we're fighting for, is for them to have the chance to do the work that they love and to have that work be dignified as real work that's worth being paid fairly.
Right. I'm going to, so I don't know what's happened today. My chat got cut off, so I can't scroll back.
Mine's still going.
I mean, it's here, but at some reason about 10 minutes ago, it cut off and like restarted or something strange. And I can't scroll back, which is, I don't ever remember this happening before. But I was going to say, I mean, we've gotten off of the snack attack kind of onto the strike too, which is probably inevitable. But I'm just going to throw up some comments. So Robert Cairo, who's in Vienna, is part of it's not, it's the streaming may not be profitable, but somehow they're finding ways to pay their CEOs 200 and 300 million a year. And that's what's, the streaming model may have all kinds of flaws, and that's not the writers and actors and everybody else's fault. The other thing that I had forgotten about this, we're talking about beyond just the faces of the show and even the writers, IATSE came this close to striking 2 years ago. And like the year before the pandemic, I say a couple of years ago, 2019, because of some of these exact same, this whole transparency, how are we getting paid issue? Like what's it's not cute to me that streaming is this new mystery box nobody can figure out. It's like, that's not paying my bills.
And they've been having
I'm doing more work and my paychecks are going down. So what's up with that?
Well, and they've been having those conversations for a long time. My brother's a film editor, and he spent a really long time trying to break into the union. And one of the things that was difficult for him was a lot of the work that he did was for sort of early streaming platforms like Geek and Sundry, which was Will Wheaton and Felicia Day's channel on YouTube, and other sort of things like that. So he's editing like original feature content, and he's developing all the same skills you would need for editing. But because the platform it was on was YouTube, it wasn't considered, like it wasn't umbrellaed under what the union would allow. Like, so he couldn't get union credit for it. Even though these things had like millions of hits. And so sort of the conversations about like, what do we do to sort of treat people fairly and kind of level the playing field in this new online streaming based framework of media? I think every union, like everyone's sort of coming to it in different times, and we don't have a good system for how all those pieces fit together yet. But I think that the strikes are hopefully helping us get there.
Yeah. Let me, I'm just looking to see before I want to get back around to the group and getting into it, because I do have the link up here now.
Awesome.
Let's see. Okay. I want to put the, this is if people want to, we want to make sure and say this. If people want to, I'm putting it in the chat, and then we'll overlay it on the archive. So I just put up the URL you sent me for your form.
Yes, the Google form to sign up for the Star Trek Snack Squad.
So, and so tell people if they go to that link, what happens?
Yeah. So, so the way that we are attempting to sort of build some infrastructure to keep this, like I said, a marathon, not a sprint, for longer term sustainability. And part of what that means is working around the fact that communicating via DMs on Twitter is getting more and more complicated. And so that's why one of the things that I mentioned earlier, that we're trying to sort of build people into recurring teams. So if you'd like to join the Snack Squad, basically here's what it looks like: is you fill out that Google form, contact information, Twitter if you have it. Otherwise, we can also do email and text. And it's helpful to know if people do live in LA. It's helpful to know if people feel like they might have a little extra bandwidth to help with organizing and coordinating things, or if you want to just kind of toss in some money, that's fine. And what that basically would mean is we would add you to, there's a couple of different, check a box for how frequently you feel like you could participate. Right now, unless somebody says, I can give once and then I'm done, which by the way is totally fine, and we super appreciate you. The people who sign up to give regularly, no one is being asked to do that more than once a month. We've got enough people now that we're building in monthly teams. So, what I would love to do, if we've got a few more signups, that would allow us to add another couple people to each team, and that, you know, lessens the financial commitment of what everybody else has to do. So in your group, like when it's your day, there'll be 5 to 7 of you. There's a designated group leader, and that person gives you their Venmo, PayPal information. They're the ones who place the order. So your group kind of throws all your money in the hat. We're very intentional about, like, this is not a place to be judgmental or feel guilty or uncomfortable about, like, the difference between people's financial capacity. Like, somebody who gives $20 and somebody who gives $5, great, we have $25. So, like, it's very much like, if all you can give is a little bit, that is okay. So everyone kind of dumps the money in the bucket. You figure out collectively what's our budget. That money goes to the weekly team lead, and they place the order for the delivery and track it. But you can kind of decide amongst yourselves, like, you know, what do you want to get? What do you want to donate today? What do you want to buy? We get feedback from the strike captains about, like, you know, we just heard from Paramount, we've gotten more and more requests for fizzy water and sugar-free Gatorade, things like that, you know, or they really like when we send, like, salty snacks like jerky and peanuts. Okay, great. So your group kind of, you know, does your shopping order together, throws the money in the pot. And then, so Mondays we cover Paramount and Disney, and we do really, it's like a cold drinks, reusable snacks kind of supply run. And then Fridays, we usually send breakfast to CBS Studio City. So if you fill out the Google form and you want to join a weekly team, you'll be with the same folks, you know, once a month. And that's really to allow us to, you know, if the strikes drag on through January, which is a rumor that we've heard, that we can continue at least weekly drops. Now, if we suddenly got a million more awesome, wonderful people who listened to your show who decided they wanted to join on, and we're able to add enough people to each week to have multiple drops, like, I would love to be able to hit all 3 studios on both Monday and Wednesday, and be able to kind of keep the supplies flowing over the course of the week. That would require probably 30 or 40 more people. So we're not quite there yet. We're also in the process now, kind of going back to everyone who has given in the past and asking if they want to, like, rejoin back again, really trying to build out a schedule so everybody knows, like, what days they're on, you know, whose phone numbers or emails you have to have. You're with the same people every time, and that we can really, without making people in the group feel like it's a financial burden on them, because everyone is, you know, we're all just donating our own money, but to really be able to stretch this out as long as the strike could conceivably take without burning out our supporters.
Right. Well, so it's, and I was scrolling through the forum there so everybody gets an idea. And of course, this is going to be posted later, so hopefully we'll keep stretching the signal here, boosting the signal. But let me come back here. It's not just about, you're being cautious about how much you can give money-wise, but you're also conscious here about what people can give time-wise, and of course logistically. If they're in the greater area, or are you doing anything for New York, or are there groups that handle New York?
No, we've gotten a number of requests from folks if we could take on stuff in New York, and we just, at the moment, we don't have the manpower for it. And I also don't have a direct contact with anybody who is a coordinator there. Now, if I did, and if we had a whole bunch more people, like, I would love to be able to do that, because to the best of my knowledge, there isn't a lot of that happening. I've seen a couple of New York strike supply funds, people sort of like trying. I've spoken to some people who are trying to kind of get that going. I don't know that there's a lot of machinery for that in place.
In general, or representing Star Trek?
Just in general. But I do know that, I think, was it Tawny I think Tawny Newsom might have been the point person for because there was a New York version when they did the big Star Trek Day at Paramount. There was a New York one, and I think she was the person.
People came down. Like Celia, maybe, and maybe Jeff.
It was like Tawny and Celia and a few other folks who were in New York that I remember. But I think, you know, the majority of them are in LA, and that that is where the infrastructure on the studio side makes it the easiest for us to plug into. So I can say Paramount, I can tell a driver like, pull into the entrance on blah and blah street, go to the blue tent by the table that says this and ask for Bill Wolkoff. So it's really easy for people, for somebody who's in Canada to make sure that food gets to the right place because the studio infrastructure is set up. And we just don't have those relationships with anyone in New York.
And I love New York, but every time New York still says they're the media capital of the world, I want to go, really? Okay.
You know what they are the capital of, though? You can get anything delivered. Like, we would not be reliant on Postmates and Uber Eats and other gig worker food delivery apps, because when I lived in New York in 2003 and 2004, and I came from Portland, where the only food people would bring to your house was pizza, because this was a pre-Postmates world, I was like, wait a minute. You can get, like, in New York City, you can get anything delivered. I was like, it would make the food thing much easier.
Of course, the geography density model.
Exactly. You just get a guy on a bike, he could bring you bagels every single day. So I'm totally open to it if there was a Star Trek presence there and somebody to coordinate. But for what we've got right now, we're really trying to sort of minimize the chaos. It was a little bit manic at the beginning because I was just sort of taking people in the order that they signed up and being like, okay, you 6 people, you're on for this Monday. And they're like, look, all of us can give you $20, but nobody has time to be the person who is like putting in the order and then waking up in the morning at 9 a.m. PST and tracking, along with the app. So then I had to do a lot of that. And so what we're still sort of building now with like consistent teams, there's a leader for each week who's coordinating the delivery, so I don't have to do all of that. So we can kind of spread it out a little bit. That repeated sort of week after week model has been really helpful, I think, for the studios. For us, it means that, when there's a schedule change, like we heard when everyone comes back from Labor Day weekend, the strikes might be 9 to noon instead of 9 to 2. So like we have that information. Or when it was like everything in the valley is closed because of the heat, there's no Disney pickets today. Like it's easy for us to disseminate that information because only a small handful of organizers kind of need to know it. And then the vast majority of people who join the Snack Squad, all you are doing is one time a month, you Venmo your team leader however much money you can give that week. And you guys chat for a few minutes in the group chat about this week, we want to send bagels or whatever. And then you just do it. So it is really easy. And again, you're on every 4 weeks at maximum, unless there is a big thing coming up, which there is.
I was going to say.
And we are on that. So if anybody out there in Trekland would like to, maybe doesn't have the bandwidth to do a regular monthly join a team, but would like to chip in for something super cool and like one-off, the next big Star Trek picket that's happening is on Star Trek Day, which is September 8th.
Friday, September 8th.
Yeah, and we are definitely doing something that we haven't quite figured out yet and are brainstorming some ideas, but any in one time for that can send their money to me. And if you put either your name or your Twitter handle and a little Vulcan salute emoji in the memo field on Venmo or PayPal, then I'll shout out everybody in a thank you post on that day. And I can I put my payment information in the chat? Can I type into this chat? I don't know if I can. But I'm Claire Willett on both PayPal and Venmo. So it's CLAIREWILLETT. You will know that it is my Venmo because the icon is Captain Janeway. So you can, if you want to, give $5, $10, $15, $20 just to chip in for the big splashy, cool, sending a truck or a big, whatever big hoo-ha we do on that Star Trek day, and you want to just throw some money into that just to help us out, that can go straight to me, and then I'll recognize everybody. I'll do a big social media thing that day. But I think we've got some folks who live in LA who are on deck for that day's team, which opens up our options for what we can bring. So I think it's going to be something really fun. We haven't figured it out yet, but yeah. And then also that we would love to have folks who maybe do have the bandwidth to to toss somebody $20 on PayPal once a month and join one of those repeated teams that would really allow us to be able to send more, to sort of, spread out our impact over those 3 sites for, again, as long as the strike continues.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being in the weeds there. And I hope some people are going to really want to hear all those questions. But what I want to back up, though, because I knew this was in the works and it finally is now publicized. And it's interesting because I was bugging Carlos and some of them about having the original one, like like that was done in 2007. And they were actually cautious about how much they would publicize it because they were very wary about being in front of the Paramount Gate, and it's not the biggest sidewalk there, and they didn't want to have 40,000, and they didn't want to have a ton of fans coming in, not knowing it was still new. It was like 3 weeks in.
And there were actors there. They didn't want it to turn into like a fan autograph,
a mini convention,
exactly. Yeah, they didn't want to be a convention. Yeah.
But now, after whatever it's been, how many months it's been, and now we've got the actors officially in this thing, and we've got everybody basically in support.
Yeah.
And it's dragging on. So yes. So what better way to celebrate, a Star Trek Day like no other?
Exactly.
With this morning 2-hour picket they're saying everybody come, IATSE, Teamsters, fans.
Yeah.
If you ever worked on the shows in any capacity at all, come. If you're a fan of any, come down. And it's for the 2 hours. And so that's going to be interesting. It's Star Trek Day. So later that day, there'll be and of course, you'd never think anything about it. And a lot of people will still enjoy. I hope they do. Both unions have said, don't turn off your channels because they do need to have an income stream so they can still pay us.
Yeah. And
it hasn't gone that far yet. So
that's
all happening later in the day. But from 10 to noon Pacific, it's going to be another, because I've been bugging them about now that the actors are in, you need to have like phase 2, round 2. And of course, what better day than Star Trek?
Yeah. And I think it's going to be really cool. And I do think that, like you said, like the longer the strike drags on, like the risk of energy flagging is a real one. And so I think having things like this, where it's like a big new boost of, social media content and lots of energy, and everybody who can't be there is going to be like looking on Twitter for pictures of like what actors were there, and people are going to, come
I'll be
cosplay.
Doing some live bits.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I did a great video from the May one where I was debating whether to go live or later. And I wound up coming down. I did some live, but I really concentrate on getting like video, because I would just wander from place to place and talk to people I hadn't seen in ages that were prior. And I met a ton of the new writers, which was why it was the silver lining.
Did you get some ice cream?
We put this 20-minute video out that weaves all that together. And shout out to Scott and Kyle for my editor guys for doing this great video. It's one of my favorite things ever. And it goes back and forth between celebrating the shows and loving it and talking about the strike issues and meeting some of the new people, and a couple of bits of news came out. And so I'm looking forward to that. Only it'll be it'll be even more actors and tons of crew people. And I'm it's only for a couple hours. It'll be madcap, nonstop, insane, and emotional. And like the other one was emotional.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
and they'll all be enjoying Snack Attack.
Exactly. I was gonna say, like, I hope you got ice cream when you were there before.
I did.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. But yeah. So whatever we do for this
3 weeks in, it was like, oh, this is that thing that I saw fly by on. Oh, this is cool.
Yeah. So we're excited to do it for this one too. I think now that we've got more people, we've got the infrastructure down a little bit more. But yeah, it is really emotional. Like I got the chance to meet Tawny Newsome last weekend, and Carlos had sent her. She was in Portland for another gig, and he sent her with.
Since you mentioned it.
Oh yeah. I
was going to ask you about. It's not about you, Claire, but this was too good.
It is
about you when there's a thanks to be done. Yeah.
It was so sweet. So there's a Star Trek themed tea room called Emperor Giorgio in Portland. It has huge mural of Michael Burnham and Star Trek Discovery and a bunch of the ships, and then one of Emperor Giorgio of Michelle Yeoh, and it's incredible. And the menu, like all of the different like sort of set price menus are named after different women of color from Star Trek. So like the Uhura is like the big one. So she was in town to bring like a signed poster and do a little hi hello to the owners of that tea room who are big fans of hers. And so Carlos messaged me and he was like, hey, if you're going to be around on Saturday at 2, drop by and say hi to Tani, and she's got something for you that's a thank you gift from us. And so I was like, oh, that's lovely. And I really like her and I love Lower Decks. And so then she was like, oh, come hang out with us. So the owners had done this whole like VIP fabulous tea spread for Tani and her friend. And then she was just like, yeah, come hang out. So I got to like have tea with Tani Newsome. And so she and I both got a tea blend that was called Ractigino, which made us both very happy because we're both DS9 kids. And then, just talked about like the show and labor and what the Snack Squad is doing and the strike and Star Trek and all kinds of cool stuff. And then I got home and then I opened, she'd give me like 2 poster tubes. And I was like, oh, that's so nice. They like signed a poster for me or something. And it turns out they signed like 5 posters. There was like a Strange New Worlds one, which I think like the whole Strange New Worlds writers room signed. And then there were 2 that Michelle Paradise from Discovery got like their whole cast and their whole writers room, and Sonequa signed it. And then the one that really made me emotional was Carlos he gave me a piece of original concept art from before the Discovery pilot for like what the disco badges would look like the comm badges. And it's signed by every Trek writer that he ever saw come through the Disney picket line. And so there's one part where, and of course everyone's signatures are illegible, but bless their writer hearts.
I'm going to ask you if you got a key with that.
But he did. He messaged me later and he was like, on Twitter, he's like, here's who everybody was. But the one that I saw that I could read immediately that really made me cry was, you're the patron saint of the WGA from Ira Stephen Bear, which just made my little heart melt. But then they sent me like, I'm wearing one of my buttons. They gave me 5 strike buttons and then a WGA captain hat, which was super exciting because I had lunch with my aunt on Sunday and she was a labor organizer for like 40 years for nurses. And so I was like, look at Pat, I'm an honorary strike captain. She was so excited. But one of the ones actually that really like made me very emotional was they sent me an actual like a picket, like a WGA picket sign, and it was signed by the whole strike coordinator organizing team at Paramount. Again, like I said, like many of whom aren't Star Trek people, but are just like, they have been really moved by the generosity of Star Trek fans and like how, like what Star Trek means in people's lives, that it motivates people to kind of come together and things like this. And so that one was just, it made me really emotional because it just really felt like we're putting something out into the world that's like bigger than us and bigger than just the things that impact us directly, and other people are feeling like what Star Trek means to the people who love Star Trek, and like that's really beautiful too. So it was like, I'm obviously like, I didn't do this thinking maybe somebody will give me a signed poster, but it was, and I sent pictures of it to everybody on the Snack Squad too. It was like, this is for all of us, and they gave me 5 buttons, and so I am sending a button to the 4 people who are like the rest of the leadership team who joined on to kind of help take a lot of this stuff off my plate. I was like, they should get something. But I was showing them, I was like, this is for all of us. Like, they are addressed to me and they are at my house, but this is because it's a group effort. Like, I could not have done this on my own, and so it's been really cool for them just to see like, oh my God, like, and this is, Tani said this too. She's like, all the writers know who you guys are, like not just within the Star Trek kind of writers community, but also writers talking to other writers on the picket line about like, oh,
we were like, still a little envious that the Star Trek writers
hugely, like, and a real recognition of like that the Star Trek fandom is something really unique and special, because of how broad it is, because of how many different generations it encapsulates and different ways to be a fan, like whether you're like a collector or you're analyzing the world building, or you're a fan fiction writer, or you're an artist,
or you're a CGI
or you design props and costumes, or like there's so many different entry points into it. But I think one thing that we all do have in common that I really have has been really meaningful to me is that it really does feel like everybody from all of those sectors shares an understanding that the people who make this art for us matter, and that their working conditions matter, and that we all want them to go back to work and keep making new stories for us under better conditions than they currently have. And that's true of whatever sort of slice of the fandom you're in. I think that's really special too.
Yeah. Well, it's been interesting. I said the one microcosm is us here, me trying to talk about the popularity of the various show from Discovery onward with each other and in TV. You know, like, how's Star Trek's revival doing? And having that be weird, you know, you can't all the classical issues of talking about the original series and was it really that bad in the ratings, or was NBC just, you know, there's that thing that's been around for 50 years, and then the syndicated shows, Next Gen was a hit, but it didn't show up in the ratings, and you had to do the syndicated ratings, and oh look, their ratings were better than World Series and for, you know, the hit shows the time. And then, you know, and UPN was a dinky little network, and it was the worst thing for Enterprise to be, you know, attached to. And all of those things about transparency and popularity, and how we know, well, obviously Star Trek is popular because it's still around after 60 years and keeps yielding new spinoffs. So say what you want, you know, from the stupid cancellation in 69 and the writer, you know, and the mail campaign and fan ownership and all of that, all the way through today. So I don't know where I was going with this, but it was.
I mean, I do think like the Star Trek invented modern fandom as we know fandom today.
This was one of my soapboxes.
And and I think, you know, that's and I think that's something that's really special, because even
helped George Lucas get the last of his financing. Helped George Lucas get the rest of his financing for Star Wars in 75, 76.
Well, and invented fandoms creating their own communities, you know, like the Kirk and Spock shippers and their conventions and the fanzines getting
the Well
photocopied
Committee
and passed around.
Internet with paper and stamps. The Star Trek Well Committee.
I mean, my first experience with the internet in like 1989 was a text-based Star Trek chat room when I was like a tiny little child, you know, so that's like, it's baked into my entire life. And so I do think that it was something that for the people who are in the snack squad, especially, again, you know, people who are like, I'm able to chip in a little bit of money and I want to feel like the little bit that I can do is making a difference. I think it was really powerful for people just to hear, you know, like from Tani saying like the conversations people are having when they're walking around the block holding their picket signs, a lot of them are about like, this community is doing something that's really amazing. And that's not me. I mean, like I'm the one with the spreadsheet and I coordinated it, but I didn't invent that. That's a thing that's just, it just is who this community is and who we are as fans. And it just, you know, it just needed an organizer to sort of bring it together. But the desire to make the world a little better through Star Trek has been there since the beginning.
Right. Well, I should wrap up. I want to make sure everybody knows we got into the inner workings of how Snack Attack works, but it's where did the name come from? Because I was looking and I saw there's apparently some, not to be confused, there's apparently some like elementary school classroom teacher Snack Attack thing that's a phrase.
It isn't. So it's not Snack Attack. So does not have any kind of official name. I mostly call it either the Snack Squad or like the Star Trek Strike Snack Squad, but that's not sort of an official moniker. That's just sort of like, I just kind of decided that. And it's also,
and there's no snacksquad.org or anything out there floating. We're not an incorporated 501c3 nonprofit with IRS certification. And I had thought about like, should I make like a separate Twitter that's just for this, but it's like, nah, that's a lot of effort. So right now it's really, very grassroots, and it's just everything's kind of run through me a little bit. I did. So, great. Thank you. I got this in your post about September, about Star Trek Day Special, And now I'm trying to read if this was only about the 8th or if this is good for everything.
So this is I'm the coordinator for the delivery, for the basically what's happening on the 8th. So
On
for
Star
the
Trek
most
Day.
part,
Okay.
on any other average day, I'm trying to get out of the business of being the daily coordinator. And so that's why we're having people join teams, and then you're assigned to a person who's the coordinator for that day, and that's who you'll Venmo. But you can hit me up straight if you're just like, I don't have time to join a whole team, but I really want to chip in 5, 10, 20 bucks for the big Star Trek thing on the 8th to allow us to like do something even bigger. Then hit me up directly. And then if you put a little Spock hand and your name or your Twitter handle or how you'd like to be thanked in the memo of your Venmo or PayPal payment. And then when I do my big thank you to all of our donors post, then I'll make sure that I can include everybody in that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, I really should let you go, and but I wanted to talk about how this happened, the history, get into a little bit about the strike, and also again talk about what am I doing here? Talk about what's coming up on the 8th here. Boom, and let me try to go full screen with that. Yeah. And let everybody know about that. If you're in the LA area, you can come by. They're welcoming everybody, so no one's worried about overcrowding that narrow little that sidewalk in front of the Paramount Gate, and it may be back and forth. And I'm excited. That's a week from Friday. So
yeah.
But everything that you're doing, I kept saying Snack Attack, and I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
The Snack Squad is doing in support, and it won't just be about that day either. Unfortunately, it sounds like this is going to go on for a while.
Yeah. And I hope it doesn't.
Like you said, a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. And I would love it if this was all over tomorrow, and then on the 8th we can just have a big party. But if it's not, I think making sure that the writers and the actors know that their community has their backs for however long this drags on is really important. So
yeah. Very good.
Awesome.
Well, listen, everybody. So Claire, thank you for coming on today. I'd meant to do this for a while, and then I was like, why don't right now? And then this popped out today.
Perfect timing. Yeah.
So it was perfect timing. So right. So good. Because it's been a long time, but it's unfortunate. Like I said, we may be here for a while. So
yeah.
No time like the present, and better sooner than later. And I only wish it was late. This may be midway. We'll see what we're doing.
Right. I know. Fingers crossed.
So yeah. So thank you for you and for all the organizers, everybody who's in the Snack Squad. And I will be a little more attentive on Friday when I see everything showing up and know exactly what's going on. But after all these weeks and months, everybody on the lines, and I'm sure the writers quickly got the actors up to speed. What's going on here and where this is coming from. And again, yay on Star Trek for proliferating this for some of the other fandoms and other, ways that people can have a handle on it. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope we did some good for the Snack Squad, and not just on the 8th, but especially the 8th, but for all the times, all those mundane days when there's nothing to celebrate except
just keeping people's morale up. Yeah.
Right.
So,
right.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you to everybody who's watching and listening, and and for using your platform to talk about important things like this. So I appreciate that.
Oh, sure thing. Sure thing. Okay, Claire, thanks a lot.
Hi, everybody.
All right, everybody. Listen, we got through the chat. I'm not going to do a regular format today. Apparently, I had Claire on for a good long time, so let's call it a day there. All right. I think I've been pretty much into the chat from day one, from square one, and got Claire into it when it was helpful. So, but I cannot get away, of course, without thanking everybody on our Patreon, our TTLers, right? Diana Hopkins, Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, and Marie Siegel, Justin Porteous, Galinda Bruton, Chris Jiggins, Pranakasha Productions, Comedy Forecast, and Andrew Jazemski. And yeah, I do this every week. How about that? And yes, of course, our live wires. Thank you. That's the next tier up. Robert McLean, Byron Bailey, J.R. Poole, Hubbard Gunn Johnson, Alan Hoenzi, Dave Gregory. Thanks for your support in the chat there, Dave. Tobias Rex, Donna S. Runyon, and Casey Shafsky. Thanks a lot, everybody, for that. It's been a year when we've been gradually adding guests. My goal is to have at least one guest a month. I think we have a guest next week as well. Just to let you know, you can jump in my very simple Patreon. Some say it's too simple. Just $5, $10 a month for this part of Trekland. So thank you very much. Patreon.com/Trekland Live. It's a weekly shout out. Comes at the end of the month, which we're there. If you want to get on the card for next month, jump in now if you can this week. Hurry up before it's gone. Right. Right. Also, it's that time of year. It's hot now. It's going to be warm for a good while. Good weather. If you're coming to LA, maybe you're coming for Star Trek Day. Maybe you're going to help out with the strike day. If you want something to do the day before or the day after, get with me. Hurry up. Or whenever you get here. And we can set up your own custom away mission on a Trekland Treks. TreklandTreks.com. Just check that out. Or go to my LarryNemechek.com. Go see. There's over 50 places. That's not all about Vasquez Rocks. It's not even all about the Tillman water plant. And I will escort you, drive you, handle your props and cosplay, your camera, whatever you need, and download an awful lot of information about them, even beyond what you're thinking about when you get there. And you get a takeaway. You get a takeaway souvenir info section with everything we talked about. And of course, the Trek Files is up. This is our 10th season finale. We're about to go on hiatus again. So there's a break coming. But today, it's our 10th season finale with, once again, Aaron Walke from Prodigy. We're looking at a document from, Gene was trying to spin off or leverage out his success on the animated series into another animated series. We look at an unused pitch for an animated series, spacey, not quite Trek, but very Trek vibey. Aaron's my guest. We recorded it live at Star Trek Las Vegas. It's there at the Trek Files. Of course, all 10 seasons are there on Facebook with the docs, or you can get the audio wherever fine podcasts are served. Otherwise, gang, it's me on Twitter or X or whatever we're doing it now. Mastodon. I'm also on Blue Sky. I need to update this. I need to get over there and use some of it and see what it looks like. Thank you, Christoph, for the Blue Sky invitation, too. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe the button here on YouTube. We're trying to do that. Of course, it's Larry's Trekland on YouTube, and Instagram is a lot of fun, and Facebook, too. Portal47.net. If you want to be in the package, in the community, it's a mini con every month. Guests and roundtable artifacts from my archives coming to you wherever your center seat is in the world, right? It is like a mini con all year long. I'd love for you to jump in. It's been a big year for growing the portal this year, too. So that's going to do it. An atypical format this time. So shout outs to everybody. Please, please, please. There's weird little do all the health things you're supposed to do, because there are little waves out there. I hear from people that it's annoying, but we still don't know what the effects of long COVID are. So take care of yourself. So yeah, stay healthy, do all the things. And oh my God, stay woke. Check the sources. Oh. And Trek well, everybody. If you're watching us live on YouTube, if you're watching us later on YouTube, don't forget, we are here live every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. UK time, and 10 p.m. Central Europe. Trek well, everybody.